Hi, my name is Natasha Carter, and I'm the health advocate for TD Industries through United Healthcare. My background is in movement therapies with the last 10 years in the wellness industry promoting healthy lifestyles. This podcast is on recognizing burnout and self-care strategies. Burnout is a phenomenon we see more and more as we continue to come out of COVID. I hear from partners all the time, "I'm ready for COVID to be done." But the reality is, life post-COVID does not look the same as pre-COVID. Our routines have changed, how we interact with people has been transformed, and the world around us looks different. To fit into this new reality, we may have to adapt what we do and how we think. Working harder or simply taking a day of rest will not cut it. Our time today is to invite you to unclench a little and let some light and air into the boiler room of our busyness, and to loosen as we listen to the lessons our hearts and spirits have within us, if only we can still ourselves long enough to hear them. So what is burnout? The term burnout was coined in the 1970s by the American psychologist Hubert Freudenberger. He used it to describe the consequences of severe stress and high ideals in the helping professions, like doctors and nurses who sacrifice themselves for others and would often end up being burned out. Today, the term is not solely reserved for these helping professions. Burnout can affect anyone, from stressed-out career-driven people to overworked employees, homemakers, or students. It can be described as feeling overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet the constant demands. As the stress continues, one begins to lose interest and motivation. Burnout doesn't mean you're not good at your job or that you need a job change. It doesn't mean that you're not strong or resilient. Those couldn't be further from the truth. These last 2 years have been overwhelming for many, regardless of what title you hold, how good you are at your job, how much grit you possess, how much you meditate or do yoga, or whether or not you've zenned out your home or workplace. If you fall into the bucket of not being fazed by what's gone on these last 2 years, those are the people I would worry about. How do you spot burnout? Signs can be subtle at first. Consistently bad days, being exhausted all the time, caring about your work or home life seems like a total waste of energy, and it feels like nothing you do makes a difference or is appreciated. Now, most of us have days when we feel helpless, overloaded, or unappreciated. But if you feel like that most of the time, that could be a sign. And burnout can resemble other mental health conditions like depression. So if you're struggling, please seek help. So what if you do feel burned out? What can you do? Burnout is not a take a rest day to recuperate type of phenomenon. It occurs gradually, and as such, the reverse is also true when recovering. The basics, like good sleep, nourishment, drinking plenty of water, practicing self-reflection, mindfulness, interjecting gratitude and joy into your day, these are all good things and can move us in the right direction. But these alone may not be enough when it comes to burnout. Burnout is about not having enough, feeling empty. So one way to look at this is filling yourself up with the stuff that makes you feel good. We're going to touch on 3 things we can all do on some level to fill up our buckets: work-life balance, building relationships, and putting on your CEO hat. As I walk you through these, not only think about how you can introduce these into your day, but as a leader, think about how you can influence your small team to support other partners in these areas. When I say leader, I'm referring to all of you. You are all leaders that can influence your teams, whether you have a formal title or not. Fiercely protecting the safety of all partners is at the core of what you do. And so you can think of this as fiercely protecting the psychological safety of your partners. We're going to start with work-life balance. One way to look at this is through the blue chip mindset and how we prioritize our time. Blue chip companies was a term used to describe the most reliable companies one could invest in. These were highly regarded and important companies. Today, the term is coined to describe the most important priorities in one's work and life. I think this is helpful as we think through all the things we have to do in any given week. Let's say you show up to work on a Monday morning and you have 100 things you need to get done by the end of the week. Each of those tasks is a ball you juggle in the air, like a juggler or a circus performer. The idea is you're not going to be able to keep the 100 things you have to do in the air, let alone the 50 that get added to your task list in the week. You're going to be dropping some balls. There are things that won't go as planned. So the key is dropping a ball strategically, differentiating in real time which balls are made of glass and which ones are made of rubber. The balls made of rubber are the ones you can drop and they will bounce back up. No harm, no foul. Whereas the glass ones, these are the blue chip things, the ones that are important. And you know what? If these don't happen, the world comes to an end on some level. The glass balls are the things you want to prioritize. The kicker is figuring out which are actually the blue chips, the glass balls, versus the ones that are nice to have. Important to some degree, but nice to have. Glass balls could be making sure you make it to your son's band recital, no matter what, or it could be meeting an important deadline for a project at work. We're going to shift gears to building relationships, our second takeaway to help with burnout. Most of us have heard of or gone to Disney World. The characters in the park are performers that create the blissful experience we've all come to expect. Disney has strict policies for their employees to uphold a certain image, partly for that reason. You'll never see Mickey Mouse take off his Mickey hat and smoke a cigarette, for example. It's just not going to happen. But employees have a place in the park where they can take off their cartoon persona and be themselves and unload without ruining the work and service to the customers. I say this because one of the most important ways to combat burnout is having this sort of safe space within your workday to take off your Mickey hat and be authentic and unload. We all work hard to represent TD and service customers in the best way possible. But in the midst of our hard work, it's important to be able to put work aside, even if just for a moment to say, hey, I'm having a bad day. On some level, others are probably feeling the same way and need to hear that. We can create this safe space by building relationships through connecting with partners outside of just the tasks we work on together. This comes natural to some people, but for others it can be a challenge. Think about how we can all foster this sense of community and camaraderie within our own teams. Being there with and for one another creates genuine community and allows for all of us to not only have our strengths, successes, and wins celebrated, but creates a psychological safety to share our struggles, allowing us to bring our whole self to work. The third and final takeaway to help with burnout is putting on your CEO hat. Thinking strategically, how do I tackle today and set a direction for tomorrow? The idea is, as CEO, you won't be able to control everything, but there may be things you can influence enough to give you the best chance of arriving at the place you want to get to. Take this for example. Let's say you're going on vacation to the Bahamas and you and your family are flying there. The night before the flight, you finish packing. The morning of, you get up early, check the traffic to find the best route to the airport, and arrive 2 hours early. You get to the gate with plenty of time, you board your flight, and you're off to have a few days of sun and fun. You made it to your destination. Why? Ultimately, you didn't control whether you got there or not. You don't own the plane or control the weather, but you exercised as much influence as you could to give yourself the best chance of getting there. Packing early, checking traffic, getting to the airport on time, etc. Thinking about this in the context of addressing concerns and obstacles of today and setting a direction for tomorrow can be helpful. We're all busy with growing workloads and tighter deadlines. On the surface, you may look like you're getting it all done with no problem, but the reality may be very different. Just because a person carries a load well doesn't mean it's not heavy. What I'm trying to say is, if you're struggling at work, maybe there's a deadline you can't meet, or your workload is more than what you can handle right now, speak with your manager. They may have no idea you're struggling. Sometimes the nature of the work doesn't allow for any changes, but sometimes adjustments can be made. It's worth having the conversation. The flip side to that is looking at the horizon. We just spoke about the here and now, but what does the future look like for you? Where do you want to be in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years? You may not be able to pick exactly what your next opportunity will be, but you can have a hand in what that looks like. Put that CEO hat on, talk with your manager about your aspirations, and create a path to get there. Again, the idea is we may not be able to control everything, but we may be able to take the right steps and have the right conversations to give us the best chance at arriving at our desired destination. I'm going to close with this. Burnout is not the result of just one thing. Taking care of the basics, sleep, food, water, exercise, these are all important things. When it comes to how you spend your day, think about where you can influence it for the better when it comes to work-life balance, building relationships, and putting on your CEO hat. And also think about how you can use your influence to encourage other partners in all three of these areas. We appreciate you joining us for this podcast. We hope you were able to take something away from it. For any questions or to learn more about programs that can help with stress and burnout, contact Total Rewards at tdindustries.com.